Hello again. We sometimes have a tendency to take the world as we find it without asking too many awkward questions about why it should be the way that it is. Israel, the Jewish state, is, for example, both a nuclear power and also launches its own satellites. It is a technologically advanced nation. Somalia, on the other hand, is a very violent country with no chance at all of launching a rocket into orbit. It's one of the most lawless and dangerous countries in the world. Singapore is one of the safest countries in the world to travel to. Japan has been launching satellites into space for over 50 years, but the Democratic Republic of the Congo is unlikely to be doing such a thing in the future. India has a space program and has sent probes to Mars and the Moon. Nobody expects Uganda to be doing such a thing in the near future. China sends men into space, but no Central American country is likely to do that. I mention these random countries because although we know that Europe and the United States are modern and sophisticated countries with nuclear weapons and space programs, the picture in the rest of the world is patchy and uneven. It does look as though South and East Asia are doing better than other parts of the world, despite some of those countries having suffered under the colonial yoke. India has nuclear weapons and will soon be putting a man into space, even though it was a British colony for all those years. Singapore is fabulously rich and very safe to visit, although it has no natural resources at all, being built on a barren and rocky island. Jamaica, on the other hand, has one of the highest murder rates in the world. It vies with El Salvador, and also has vast reserves of bauxite ore and perfect weather for agriculture. Syria and Libya are very dangerous places to be, but Israel is as safe as can be. Looking at these places and seeing how advanced or backward they are, and also how peaceful and violent, some patterns do seem to emerge. The hotter the country, the more likely is there to be a higher murder rate in general. So the countries of Central and South America, Equatorial Africa and the Caribbean, parts of the Middle East, usually have more murders and violence than Western Europe or Canada. There are exceptions to this general rule, though, and that is when you reach Southern and East Asia, because once you've passed Afghanistan, violent death becomes less likely and you start to encounter modern and advanced countries. I'm guessing that some people are expecting me at this point to start talking about how there must be a connection between ethnicity and crime, ethnicity and technological advancement, and so on. But I'm sorry to disappoint. I don't think that dog will run under these circumstances. For example, India is tremendously advanced and will soon be putting people into space, but Bangladesh is next door and in a terrible state. Ethnically, the Bengalis and Indians are pretty much the same, but something has allowed the Indians to forge ahead. In the same way, Singapore is a fantastically modern and well-to-do society and very safe. But nearby Cambodia and Thailand aren't doing nearly as well. I don't think that race alone does explain what is seen. Jamaica and El Salvador tie for first place as the countries with the highest murder rate, but their ethnic composition is very different. Obviously, there is some other common factor. Is it that they are both hot, or is it their proximity to the United States, perhaps? I said that I did not think that race really provided a good explanation for what we see, but this certainly ties in with immigration to Britain, which some viewers may perhaps regard as another of my favourite hobby horses. Whatever causes Jamaicans to be prone to killing one another, and also causes people from Singapore to live quietly and respectably, does anybody think that the way of life in those two countries will affect how people from Jamaica and Singapore are likely to behave when they go to live in another country. So there's a lot of violent crime and murder in Jamaica. Does anybody think that a Jamaican coming to Britain will immediately adapt to the more peaceful way of life here? Or will he retain some habits of either caution or aggression which he had in his home country? If a Japanese or person from Singapore comes to live here, will they continue to behave in generally law-abiding ways? Or will they begin to cut loose a little once they're in this country and turn to violence and crime? I am, of course, as usual, speaking in broad terms, not generalising and claiming that all people from Singapore are law-abiding and peaceful, nor that all Jamaicans are dangerous criminals. We are talking, though, of probabilities when we look at large numbers of people from either country. That is to say, percentages and likelihoods, not absolutes. Does anybody think that a neighbourhood in Britain with many Chinese people living in it is likely to differ in any way at all from one where a lot of Jamaicans are living? I hope that people will see that I am talking in this video not about possible racial or ethnic differences, but purely about cultural variations between nations. Should any of these considerations affect our policy on immigration? Would we rather have people from East Asia coming to live here or those from Central America or the Caribbean? Does it make a difference? I think that if we accept that immigration to this country is likely to continue, and it seems to me almost certain that is the case, then perhaps a debate we might have is about where we would like immigrants to come from and why. As I say, this video has nothing at all to do with race, but I doubt that this will prevent the inevitable cry of racism being raised by some.